Hello everyone and welcome to another video review. This video is to kind of overview what we are learning about in our microworlds theme. Want to kind of start off with DNA. One of the biggest things that I hope you guys understand in the microworlds theme is that every living thing has DNA in it. And the picture kind of seeing here is what you kind of call like a strand of DNA. But the one thing that always amazes me is that every living thing on Earth is made from 4 ingredients. That's it. You got iodine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. And it's like baking, where if you just set these 4 ingredients out on the kitchen counter and you mix them in different amounts, you make everything from a giraffe to a fish to even a tree, even a plant. That's it. So with our microworlds theme, we've kind of talked about evolution and how you have to change to survive. So DNA over the billions of years and all these living creatures says, all right, I want to keep living. How do I do it? So through mutations like two-headed turtles, DNA and cells are all trying to figure out ways to keep surviving. We've talked about with humans, 100 years ago, a 5-foot person would have been considered a giant. I would have been looked at as weird. But today, with how evolution is constantly changing, it's the norm. Looking at life expectancy, looking at health, we're always trying to find ways to survive. So DNA is there. Think of every time you guys get a cut. You don't randomly get someone else's skin. Your DNA has a blueprint to make you. I read one place that if we were actually to print off the recipe to make you, it'd be over 500 pages, front and back. So it's just amazing how much this DNA that is packed inside the nucleus of each and every cell knows exactly where your skin is and can regrow that exact same skin when you get a cut. So moving forward here, the picture that you guys see now is a gentleman by the name of Carl Linnaeus. He was looking at everything back in the 1700s and going, well, what do we call this? What do we call that? So he spent his life work trying to find a ways that we could classify every living thing and start putting them into groups and organizing them. And through many, many, many trials and errors, he came up with what's called the 7 levels of classification. This is kind of the big thing that our microworlds theme is based on. You've got everything from kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species, and those are the 7 levels. But inside each level is a set of questions. So like if you're looking at a brand new animal or creature and you're like, well, I want to know what to call it, because again, when we give it the Latin or Greek words down here for genus and species, that's its scientific name. This gives us the name that we can talk to any person around the world, and they're going to know what creature we're talking about. For example, if I say I want a can of soda, down south in the United States, like, oh, that means pop. But if we went over to Japan and said, I want a soda, they might be looking at you like, well, what's a soda? So Carl Linnaeus invented these 7 levels to give us that scientific name that we can talk to any scientist around the world with. So let's quickly do an example here. So if you're looking at a creature, an organism, you don't know what it is, you have to start looking at the characteristics of each of them, saying, well, which one does it fit into? So for example, if we're looking at a human, well, it's an animal, it's not a plant. It's not a protist, because protists are just basically single cells. It's not fungus, because it can't make its own food, and it doesn't fit in the bacteria category because it's not a cell with no brain. So if we're looking at humans, we're going, well, it's an animal. So since it's an animal, the next 6 questions change. Okay, so the next question in the phylum category would be, well, are you a vertebrate or an invertebrate? Well, animals and humans, we have backbones. So then if we say vertebrate, these next questions change. Well, in the class category, are you a mammal? Do you have fur? Do you have scales like fish? Are you slimy? Are you warm-blooded? Which categories, like animals, like mammals, fish, birds, reptiles, and amphibians, which one of these do you fit into? And as you see, these questions keep changing until we get down here to the genus and species. And as humans, we are classified as Homo sapiens, which is a genus and species. So if we go anywhere around the world and say, well, look at this Homo sapien, everyone's going to know exactly what we're talking about. Take a look at plants, for example. If we're looking at something and it's a plant, the next question down here for phylum, it's not vertebrate or invertebrate, because that wouldn't make any sense. The next question would be are you vascular? Or are you non-vascular, which means does this plant have veins for vascular, or does it have no veins for non-vascular? So the big thing that Carl Linnaeus did with these 7 levels is it was a list of questions. What do you look like? What characteristics do you have? And finally, when we get this big area up here, we start whittling away to this little tiny, specific, very detailed questions. And that will tell us the name. So let's look at this quick video I found on YouTube that just kind of gives a good example of what I'm talking about.
We're going to start at the most inclusive, or the biggest group, and we're going to whittle our way down to the smallest, or the species. Let's take an example, our mountain lion. We're going to take our mountain lion and classify it all the way from domain to species. Our mountain lion is going to be in domain Eukarya, or the eukaryotes. It's then going to be in kingdom Animalia, or the animal kingdom. Then we have phylum Chordata, or the chordates. These are going to be organisms that have a backbone. Then we're going to have class Mammalia. These are mammals. Mammals are going to be organisms that have fur and produce milk. Next, we're going to have order. The order is Carnivora. This means that our mountain lions belong to an order of all carnivores. Next, we have family. Family Felidae. Family Felidae is going to be all big cats. Next on the list is genus. Genus is the puma part of their scientific name. And of course, last is the species, concolor. A fun little way I have for you to remember all the... It's then going to be in mountain lion and classify it.
So again, as she was talking about here, we look at this and say, well, this is a mountain lion. But if you look at the genus and species and you say it's a puma concolora, we can go anywhere around the world and give them this name and they'll know exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so again, going back to the 7 levels of classification, this is the big picture that I'm trying to teach you and relate to you, that every living thing based on characteristics will give us a common language that we can talk to anyone around the world with. We've all learned, in previous grades, what characteristics that all mammals have, all birds have, all fish, reptiles, amphibians. You guys all learned that in previous grades. Well, in 5th grade, it's going to start to connect to the 7 levels of classification. All right. Again, this is kind of a good quick review of what we're learning about. If you have any questions from this video, hopefully it kind of makes sense to you. But if you have any questions about this video, you can always write them down and bring them to class, and I will gladly explain them to you and answer your questions at school. Thank you.